it's John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to day 4 of Commander 2017 previews, and you guessed it, today's Wizard Day. So we saw the other 3 tribal decks fleshed out pretty well at this point, starting with Cats on Monday, Dragons on Tuesday, Vampires on Wednesday. Today we're going to take a look at all of the revealed wizards from that wizard deck that came out over the last 24 hours. There's a few other cards here from some of the other decks. We'll look at those too. But as of now, all of the new cards have been revealed. There's some reprints we don't know about yet. Maybe we'll find out about them tomorrow. But at least as of right now, all of the new cards have been revealed. So we're going to go through the rest of them for you right now. Quickly before we get started, if you check out the description below, you'll find a couple ways to help support us. One of which is our Amazon affiliate store. You'll find a link also for the Commander 2017 products down below. And you'll also see our Patreon page linked down there as well. With that out of the way, let's get into the cards. And we're going to start off with a card that's actually just been officially confirmed. We talked about this yesterday as a leak, and Nala Mage Ritualist. Now, I won't go into all the details since we just talked about the card. I will link that video, though, at the end of this one if you're interested in hearing my thoughts on it. But it appears this card was actually Gathering Magic's card to reveal, and it looks like they revealed it shortly after that leak happened, once retailers started getting at least photos of the product and it got out there. So it's a really cool card. This is the featured commander for the wizard deck. Alright, let's get on to some new stuff with Kest Dissonant Mage. She's going to cost a red, a black, a blue, and 1 human wizard 3/4 with flying. During each of your turns, you may cast an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard. If a card cast this way would be put into your graveyard this turn, exile it instead. So the real news here isn't her stats. 3/4 flyer, that's just fine, especially for 4 mana, but it's that ability that really puts this card a little bit further. Now, being able to, on one of your turns, use an instant or sorcery from your graveyard and replay it basically feels like a watered down Snapcaster Mage ability in some ways. And it's actually pretty good, even though, yes, you can't use it on your opponent's turn, it doesn't have flash, you can't surprise anybody, so on and so forth. Still feels pretty good, considering you can recast this if it dies from your command zone and such. So this card, I don't know how it's going to play out of the box as a commander. This is one of the backup commanders. It just depends on how good the instant and sorcery cards that are included in this deck are. If they're decent, though, this might be a good secondary choice for a commander perhaps, but if you wanted to manipulate this deck and upgrade it with some really good instants and sorceries, maybe she becomes a better choice. I guess we'll wait and see once we get the deck list. Mairsil the Pretender. Another card that's going to cost a Grixis and 1, so a red, a black, a blue, and 1 legendary creature human wizard 4/4. When this enters the battlefield, you may exile an artifact or creature card from your hand or graveyard and put a cage counter on it. Mairsil the Pretender has all activated abilities of all cards you own in exile with cage counters on them. You may activate each of those abilities only once each turn. Okay, so first off, I want to mention this is a flavor home run, especially for someone who's played Magic a long time. One of my favorite sets thematically is the Dark, and this is a character straight out from that set. And even though we never saw this character on a card before, the lore goes back to the Dark, and this is basically the nemesis of Lord Ith. And if you're familiar with that Dark lore way back, basically Mairsil put Lord Ith in a cage and trapped him in a cage. So this is really awesome that they dug this deep back in the lore to find this character and bring it out today. I think that's pretty awesome. So I really like the card just for those reasons. The card itself, again, it's much like the last card. How good will it be in this particular commander build? Well, we'll have to see the deck list. It could be just fine. It just depends on what kind of targets it has. But again, if you wanted to upgrade the deck, maybe add some better targets for it after it comes out and you actually get the product, you could do that, and this card might be even better, might be a good choice as your commander. Next is Marquise of the Black Rose. This is actually a reprint from Conspiracy, and this is a card you could choose to use as your commander if you wanted to. Same casting cost as the other two, a red, a black, and blue, and 1 human wizard legendary creature, 3/3 with Dethrone. Other creatures you control have Dethrone. Whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it dies, return that card to the battlefield under your control at the beginning of the next end step. Now, I'm glad they reprinted this. This is from the first Conspiracy, and this is not a cheap card. Before this announcement today, it was about $6. So I'm sure we'll go down now that this card has been announced as being reprinted, but at the same time, I'm glad Wizards cut that off of the past before it got up to like $10, $12, $15, right? So that's good for players that want to pick up a card like this to play for commander purposes or what have you. Besides that, even foils of the original Conspiracy, those are real spendy. They're like $50. Now, unfortunately, you can't get a foil of this in this product. The other commanders that we just looked at, the first three, they will be in foil. This one won't be, unfortunately, but maybe sometime down the road we'll have that opportunity again. But I think it's a nice inclusion. Taigam Sidisi's Hand. This costs a black, a blue, and 3 legendary creature, human wizard, 3/4. Skip your draw step. At the beginning of your next upkeep, look at the top 3 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. You can pay a black and tap to exile X cards from your graveyard. Target creature gets -X/-X till end of turn. I love what they did with this. Earlier in the week, actually one of the cards that was leaked a long time ago was another Taigam, right? And we got to see a version from the Khans of Tarkir timeline, and now we're seeing a version from the Dragons of Tarkir timeline. Really cool that they did that in this particular product. I think that's super sweet. Again, they're just knocking it out of the park with the lore, and I love that. The card itself, it's pretty good. I mean, a 3/4. I like that first ability. That's what really kind of has me hooked. It's a nice way to kind of dig through your deck and find the things you need a little faster. And yes, that first ability populates your graveyard to use that second ability. The secondary ability, which kind of riffs off Delve, right? It's a Delve ability, basically. It can take care of a threat here and there, but it's not going to be super consistent. It's a little slow, but it's tacked on, and it's fine. I really play this card more so for that first ability. So again, it can be pretty sweet. Also interesting if you wanted to build a Dimir commander deck and make this your commander. It's a good commander that's not dealing with the type of things you usually see from Dimir commanders, which many times is mill strategies or stuff like that. So it's just a little bit different. I like it. All right, the next card comes to us from a Japanese language spoiler. It's one of the Kindreds. It's Kindred Boone, loosely translated. 2 white and 2, enchantment. When this enters the battlefield, choose a creature type, pay a white and 1, put a divinity counter on target creature you control with the chosen type. All creatures you control with divinity counters become indestructible. Now, your nemesis when you play a tribal deck is board sweeps. So I think it's pretty cool that they're including some cards to protect your tribes and your tribal synergies in this product, and this is definitely one of them. There's not too much more I can say about it. I mean, for 4 mana, it doesn't do anything on its own at first. As long as you have a couple extra mana to pour into it, though, you can start doing stuff with it the turn it comes into play. That feels pretty good. And eventually, the plan is to try to make all your stuff indestructible and deal with some of those Wrath of God style effects that are out there. So I like the card a lot. Glad they designed it. Next one comes to us from a French language spoiler. It's Galcaster Colossus, 2 blue and 5, giant wizard, 5/6. Tap an untapped wizard you control, return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand. Alright, this is just an annoying card for your opponents. I mean, you put this thing out, it's 7, it's not cheap necessarily, but not hard to get out by any means. 5/6, it's got a nice body attached to it, so it could rumble if you needed it to, but I'm not even thinking about rumbling with this as much as I'm just trying to disrupt my opponent's board states on the fly. Tapping the untapped wizards that you control, which includes this one, you can start bouncing all sorts of non-land permanents, and that seems pretty sweet. Your normal run-of-the-mill direct damage, like your lightning bolt style effects, can't even deal with this thing unless they have 2 of them out there. Now, granted, this is one of those things that will have a target on its back. I mean, it will be destroyed at some point, but if you play it at the right time, it feels like it could do some work for you. Next we have Magus of the Mind. 2 blue and 4, human wizard, 4/5, pay a blue, tap, sack, shuffle your library, then exile the top X cards, where X is 1 plus the number of spells cast this turn. Until end of turn, you may play cards exiled this way without paying their mana costs. I really like the art here too. So basically, this is a Mind's Desire on legs, which is basically what these Magus cards usually are. Pick your favorite spells, and they're turned into a creature version with an ability. So this is pretty sweet if you're all in on Storm, and it plays well with Kess. So if Kess is your commander of choice, it feels like maybe she's a little more tempered to go in the Storm direction. Don't know how much Storm support you're going to find out of the box, but again, that could be an upgrade for you once you get this deck and start adding some of your own stuff to it and putting your own twist on it. So I really like the card. It's a little slow. I mean, it's definitely slow when you start thinking about Legacy or something like that. I don't think you can slide this into one of those particular Storm decks, because you do have to basically untap with it to get the ability, and that's just not quite good enough. And yes, even in Commander, sometimes that's not going to be quite good enough, because this thing will have a target on its back when it comes out. It does have some decent toughness though, which is good at 5, so feels like a fun card. Might not always get there for you, but definitely if you're all in on maybe a Storm style plan, could be fun. Next we have another Japanese language spoiler. It's Portal Mage, loosely translated. A blue and 2 human wizard with flash, 2/2. When this enters the battlefield, if it's during the declare attacker step, choose target attacking creature. You may have that creature attack the player or planeswalker of your choice. Okay, so basically what this card's doing is once one of your opponent gets to their declare attacking phase, you just go ahead and flash this in and you get a free attack with one of their creatures. So you get control of one particular creature and decide that it will attack and who it will attack, whether that be a player or planeswalker. So it's very specific, but it could be very good too at times for maybe breaking up some alliances, causing a little bit of chaos, or just maybe getting something tapped down and having it attack somebody else that you don't want untapped for a variety of reasons. But again, it's just a fun card, especially for a multiplayer format like Commander. Next is another reprint with Apprentice Necromancer. A black and 1 zombie wizard 1/1, pay a black, tap and sack. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. That creature gains haste at the beginning of your next end step. Sacrifice it. This card was originally from Urza's Destiny. It's not expensive. It's like a $2 card, but it was never reprinted before, so it's kind of nice to see it here with some new art. I do think that's sweet, and the art actually looks pretty incredible. The card itself is okay. I mean, if you're all in on reanimation and doing some shenanigans, trying to pull some really big, powerful creature that maybe has a real good ability or something onto the battlefield, or just something that is a beater that you can put out for one turn, maybe you have some other ways to reanimate as well, and this is just a redundancy, then it's okay. It's nothing to write home about, but I think in this pre-constructed deck anyway, it will be just fine. Crew Mind Eater. This one costs a black and 2. It's a 1/3 vampire. We're back on vampires now for this one. Menace. Whenever this deals combat damage to a player, that player exiles a card from his or her hand face down. You may look at and play cards exiled with Crew Mind Eater. Here's my issue with it. It's just a little small. If you have a way to buff it, it probably would be a better card if this thing was attacking in as maybe a 4/4, 5/5 menace or something like that. Then your opponent has some decisions to make there. The way it stands right now, just out of the box, is a 1/3 menace. Maybe if you play it early, you can get a couple cards exiled, which maybe hits something good for later, but maybe you don't. It's just really high variance, and it's going to be really hard to make it get across and do what you want it to do, unfortunately. That 1/3, as long as the opponent has a second creature, they're going to be able to block it, and they're not going to be too worried about that. So yeah, it kind of is what it is. If you can buff it, it gets better, but again, maybe this is one you pull out of that vampire deck to replace with something else for an upgrade. Next we have another of the Kindred cards. This one is an Italian language spoiler, Kindred Dominance. It's pretty simple. 2 black and 5 sorcery, choose a creature type, destroy all creatures that are not the chosen type. Basically the opposite of extinction. So yeah, the card itself, it's a good board suite for tribal. It's excellent. You'll be happy to have it. It's not as cheap as, say, Crux of Fate. If you're in the Dragon deck, you wouldn't need something like this necessarily unless you really wanted the redundancy. But aside from that, yeah, you'll be happy to play something like this. It's a little expensive. It's definitely meant for Commander or some other kitchen table or multiplayer style games. But it's good. It's going to get the job done. Earlier, we did see a card that helps protect you against board sweeps, so that's good. And now we're seeing a very good tribal board sweep. Next we have Vindictive Lich. I really like the art on this one too. A black and 3 zombie wizard 4/1. When Vindictive Lich dies, choose one or more. Each mode must target a different player. Target opponent sacks a creature. Target opponent discards 2 cards. Target opponent loses 5 life. It's interesting. I mean, it costs 4. It's a 4/1. It's real squishy with a 1 toughness. It's going to die, but when it dies, you get some benefit out of it. And it's got enough power behind it that your opponent is going to have to think about what to do if you attack them with it. Are they going to let it die and block it with something, or are they going to take the 4 and not have to deal with one of these other abilities perhaps hitting them? Or again, maybe you work something out with somebody else at the table and they block it and you don't hit them, and you kind of build a little bit of a political alliance. So there's a few different ways you can go with the card. Again, great design for multiplayer, if nothing else. Izzet Chemister. This one's interesting. It's a red and 2 Goblin Wizard with haste 1/3. You can pay a red and tap exile target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard. And also you can pay a red and 1 and tap and sacrifice to cast any number of cards exiled with Izzet Chemister without paying their mana cost. So again, another Storm style card. Basically it's trying to fuel Storm type effects. And yeah, I'm really interested to see what we get when it comes to reprints in this Wizard deck. If there's going to be some good Storm cards in there, or if they're just kind of teasing us a little bit with these, and they're cards that you would have to upgrade yourself. So I guess we'll find out more soon. Again, a little slow when it comes to like Legacy Storm or anything like that. It won't be able to cross over there again. That whole, even though it has haste, the whole setup of having to exile the instant and sorcery cards first before you get to play them again for free is just going to be a tad slow. And again, sometimes this won't pan out for you and even Commander, because this thing is pretty fragile with 3 toughness. Shifting Shadow. A red and 2 enchantment aura. Enchanted creature has haste, and at the beginning of your upkeep, destroy this creature. Reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card. Put that card onto the battlefield and attach Shifting Shadow to it. Then put all other cards revealed this way on the bottom of your library in a random order. Now, out of all the mono cards maybe we've seen today, maybe even all week, this one is the most intriguing to me. Now, it takes a little setup, obviously. One thing I will point out, it works really well with an indestructible creature, by the way, especially maybe with the white boon we saw earlier. That could be interesting. But aside from that, I'm able to hit perhaps some really big things from my deck that maybe have some good effects attached to them, or again, are just plain good beaters with maybe some evasion. And yes, there's some variance attached to it. If you don't hit that great thing, you might hit something smaller, but I like this in conjunction with maybe reanimation effects. So I tossed a few creatures in the graveyard during the process, but eventually I hit that big thing I really want. It does some really good things for me, and later on I can bring the other stuff back. Now, because of that, I'm thinking maybe Legacy Reanimation. I don't know if it's good enough or if it's too high variance. It might be, but I'd want to at least try it out. And the reason I say that is, could you imagine hitting like a Griselbrand with this and having that come in with haste? It's a very through the breach sort of feel to it. Takes a little more setup though, and I think that might be the problem. If you have a small creature that can put this on, and then again, you might not hit the big thing like the Griselbrand either. If that's the case, well, maybe toss some smaller creatures into your graveyard that have some abilities like a Snapcaster Mage or something like that, and then later on you can Living End or Living Death them into play or something. So I don't know. It's just me thinking outside the box on this one a little bit. Not sure if it could really get there, but I'd at least want to play around with it a little bit and try to brew something. This is a card that at least captures my imagination more so than many of the others, considering it's got a reasonable casting cost and it has a potentially strong ability attached to it. Now, aside from that though, Commander, yeah, the card's going to be really cool for you there, especially in conjunction with reanimation abilities. All right, having said that, guess what? Those are the cards. So we have seen all of the new cards that will be released in these 4 decks. We have not yet seen all of the reprints or the official deck lists. My assumption is tomorrow we'll see deck lists, and if that's the case, we'll begin our deck review video starting tomorrow. If that's not the case for some reason and it's Monday, we'll do it then, but I feel like we'll probably see them tomorrow. But until next time, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.